Attention! A real story verified by a team specializing in the paranormal, with testimonies, images, and received documents. Proceeding may shock or disturb you and affect your emotional and mental state. Watch at your own risk.
What the devil told my son.
My name is Carolina, and what I'm about to tell you happened to me 2 years ago. For a long time, I tried to convince myself that they were just coincidences, that my mind was creating connections where none existed. But today, after everything I've been through, I know that some truths are too heavy to carry alone. Our house was at the end of a dead-end street, a simple 2-story building I inherited from my grandmother. It was a place where silence seemed to have its own weight, especially during the dead of night. The old windows groaned with the wind, and the wooden floorboards creaked even when no one walked on them. It was just me and my 6-year-old son, Gabriel. After the divorce, that house became our refuge. Or at least that's what I thought. The walls, painted a faded beige, seemed to hold memories that weren't ours, and there was something in the dark hallways that always made me quicken my pace when I had to cross them at night. I worked from home as a translator, so we spent a lot of time there, just the two of us. Gabriel played in his room while I worked in the living room, and for months, everything seemed normal. But there were times when I felt like we weren't alone, as if someone was watching us through the cracks of the curtains or the shadows that formed in the corners of the rooms. What I didn't know was that our tranquility was about to be destroyed, and that the one responsible for it was closer than I could ever imagine. Our mornings always followed the same routine. Gabriel woke up at 7, came down to have coffee with me in the kitchen, and then went back up to play while I started my work. He was a quiet child, too smart for his age, and rarely gave me trouble. During the first few weeks in the house, everything seemed to fit perfectly. Gabriel had adapted well to his new room, a spacious room on the 2nd floor with a window overlooking the backyard. He organized his toys with an almost obsessive care, always leaving everything in perfect rows before bed. I spent my afternoons translating documents at the living room table, from where I could hear Gabriel playing upstairs. Sometimes he talked to himself, as all children do, creating different voices for his action figures. It was comforting to hear that childish murmur while I worked. Evenings were our special time. After dinner, we watched cartoons together on the couch, and I took him to brush his teeth before bed. He always asked me to leave the hallway light on. He said he didn't like the total darkness of the new house, but there were little things that subtly began to bother me. Gabriel sometimes suddenly stopped playing, as if he were hearing something I couldn't perceive. When I asked him what it was, he just shook his head and went back to his activities. The house also had its own sounds. Creaks in the 2nd floor wood during the early hours of the morning, as if someone was walking slowly through the rooms. I always attributed it to the weather or temperature changes, but there was something unsettling about the regularity of those noises. And Gabriel started mentioning a name I had never heard before. The name was Miguel. Gabriel started mentioning him casually during breakfast, about 3 weeks after we moved in. Miguel said it's going to be sunny today, he commented, stirring his cereal in the bowl. Who is Miguel, my love? I asked, thinking it was some kid from school.
My friend, he lives here too.
I smiled, finding it cute. Imaginary friends are normal at that age, especially after such a big change in our lives. I didn't pay it much mind, but it was the following week that things started to get strange. I always organized the kitchen before bed. It was a habit that calmed me. Dishes washed, chairs pushed under the table, everything in its place. But I started coming downstairs in the morning and finding things out of place. First, it was just a chair pulled away from the table. Then, the refrigerator slightly ajar. One day, I found all the refrigerator magnets rearranged in a perfect straight line. Gabriel, did you come downstairs during the night? I asked.
No, Mommy, it was Miguel. He likes to tidy things up.
A shiver ran down my spine, but I forced a smile. Tell Miguel he doesn't need to mess with our things, okay? Gabriel nodded seriously, as if he were truly delivering a message. It was on Thursday that I heard the first inexplicable noise. I was working when I heard Gabriel's bedroom door close with a soft click. I went up to check, thinking the wind might have slammed the door, but Gabriel was sound asleep in his bed and all the windows were closed. The next day, the same sound, and the day after. Always at the same time, exactly at 3:15 in the afternoon. "Gabriel," I asked during dinner, "have you been closing your bedroom door in the afternoon?"
No, mommy. Miguel closes it because he doesn't like it when it is too bright.
My throat went dry. "And where does Miguel stay when he closes the door?" Gabriel looked at me with that disturbing seriousness only children can have. "He stays with me. He always stays with me." The following weeks were a downward spiral into something I couldn't comprehend. The events became more frequent, more deliberate. I started leaving objects in specific positions as a test. A pen on the kitchen table, aligned with the edge. A glass on the counter, exactly 2 fingers from the sink. Every morning, they were in different places. Not randomly tossed, but reorganized with an almost artistic precision. Gabriel continued his conversations with Miguel, and I started paying closer attention. They weren't childish monologues. They were real dialogues. He paused, as if listening for answers. Sometimes he would laugh softly. Other times he would become serious and whisper things I couldn't understand. That's when I started hearing footsteps. Always during the early hours of the morning between 2 and 3 a.m. Slow, deliberate footsteps in the second-floor hallway, as if someone was walking from one room to another. But when I went up to check, Gabriel was always asleep, and the hallway was empty. The air in the house began to change too. There were times when an inexplicable chill would take over certain rooms, especially Gabriel's bedroom. I would go in to tidy his things and feel as if I were walking through an invisible, icy mist. And then the knocking started. Three knocks on the front door, always 3, always at the same rhythm. Knock, knock, knock. The first time I ran to answer, thinking it was some emergency. There was no one there. The street was empty, silent. I went back inside, my heart pounding. The second time I looked out the window before opening. Nothing, just the darkness of the dead-end street. The third time I didn't even move from the couch. The knocks repeated. Then silence.
Mommy, Gabriel appeared on the stairs in his pajamas, rubbing his eyes. Miguel wants to come in.
What did you say?
He was outside, but now he is already coming.
My blood ran cold. Gabriel, come here. He came down and sat next to me on the couch. I hugged him tight, feeling my heart pound against my ribs. My love, Miguel isn't real. He's just from your imagination. Gabriel pulled away slightly and looked at me with an expression I'll never forget. It wasn't a child's confusion. It was pity, as if he felt sorry for me for not being able to see the obvious.
He is right, Eddie. Mommy, he whispered, looking at the empty space beside the armchair. He said he's sick.
Gabriel's words echoed in the room like a funeral bell. He said you're sick. What do you mean by sick, my love? Gabriel continued staring at the empty armchair, his childish voice contrasting with the seriousness of what he was saying. Miguel knows when people have bad things inside them. He said you do. A chill ran down my spine. In recent months, I had experienced a persistent cough that I attributed to stress. Some episodes of shortness of breath, chest pains that I ignored. Coincidence. It had to be a coincidence. Gabriel, come here with me, please. But he remained still, his eyes fixed on that empty spot. Then, in a whisper I could barely hear, he said,
Miguel wants to help you, Mommy. He can make the bad thing go away.
What kind of help? Gabriel finally looked at me, and for a moment, just a moment, his eyes seemed different, older, more knowing.
He just wants to be your friend too, like he is my friend.
At that instant, a gust of wind made all the doors in the house slam shut at the same time. The sound echoed through the rooms like macabre applause. Gabriel smiled, an innocent child's smile, but one that made me feel as if I were staring into an abyss.
You should go tell the doctor. Mommy, he said casually, as if suggesting I buy milk. Miguel said it's important to go soon.
My hands trembled. How could a 6-year-old child know about symptoms I myself had ignored? How could he be so certain about something so specific? Gabriel, what else did Miguel tell you? My son tilted his head, as if listening to something. Then, with the unsettling naturalness only children possess, he replied,
He said he is going to take care of you that we'll never be alone again.
The way he said, "never again," made my stomach churn. It wasn't a comforting promise. It was something definitive. Final. And when Gabriel went back to playing normally, as if nothing had happened, I realized that perhaps the real question wasn't whether Miguel existed or not. The question was, what did he want in exchange for his help? 3 days after the conversation with Gabriel, I scheduled a doctor's appointment. I told the doctor it was just a routine checkup, but my voice trembled when I mentioned the cough and fatigue. The test results took 2 weeks to come back. 2 weeks during which Gabriel continued his conversations with Miguel, always casually mentioning things a child shouldn't know. Miguel said the medicine will make you feel nauseous, or Miguel said the doctors will want to take a piece of you to examine. The diagnosis came on a Thursday afternoon. Lung cancer, early stage, exactly as that voice had described through my son. I sat in the hospital parking lot for almost an hour, just staring at the paper with the results. How was it possible? How could Gabriel, or whatever Miguel was, know? Desperate for answers, I sought out the priest from the church my grandmother used to attend. Padre Antonio was an elderly man with kind eyes, but when I told him my story, his expression grew serious. "My daughter," he said, intertwining his fingers, "there are forces in this world that know our sufferings even before we do, but they never reveal such information out of kindness." "What do you mean, Father?"
When evil offers us knowledge or a cure, it's always with a purpose. It reveals our pain so that we feel grateful, so that we lower our guard, so that, in our moment of greatest despair, we consider making a trade.
The priest's words echoed in my mind like funeral bells. A trade?
Your soul, my daughter, in exchange for healing, for salvation, it plants the seed of fear, then offers itself as the only salvation.
I returned home with the weight of an impossible decision on my shoulders. Gabriel was waiting for me in the living room, playing quietly with his action figures. When he saw me, he smiled that innocent way that now gave me chills.
Miguel asked if you've decided yet, Mommy.
Decided what, Gabriel?
If you want to get well.
I swallowed hard. And what do I need to do to get well?
Gabriel stopped playing and looked at me with that disturbing seriousness. Miguel said it's easy. You just need to say you accept being his friend. Forever.
Forever. The word echoed in my mind like a death sentence. And at that moment, looking at my innocent son repeating the words of something I wasn't even sure existed, I realized I was facing the most terrible choice a mother could ever confront: the life of my body, or the salvation of my soul. The weeks that followed were the darkest of my life. The cancer treatment was brutal. Each chemotherapy session left me weaker, more desperate. Gabriel saw me vomiting, saw me crying in pain, saw me wasting away each day. And he too began to despair. One night, after a particularly devastating session, I was lying on the couch, barely able to move. Gabriel came closer, and for the first time in months, I saw real tears in his eyes.
Mommy, are you going to die?
My heart shattered. No, my love. Mommy is going to get well.
But you'll be getting sicker and sicker. He began to cry desperately. I don't want to be alone. I don't want you to die.
It was in that moment of total despair, seeing my son broken by fear and pain, that something inside me gave way. When Gabriel whispered between sobs, "Miguel can help, Mommy. He really can," I couldn't bear it anymore. With a hoarse and broken voice, I murmured, "Okay, Gabriel, tell Miguel that I accept being his friend." Gabriel stopped crying immediately. His eyes lit up with a hope that made me question whether I had just saved my son or condemned my soul. That was 3 years ago. 3 years since I uttered those words. The treatment continued, and my health began to improve gradually. The doctors were surprised by the speed of my recovery. They called it an exceptional response to treatment. They celebrated it as a success story. But I know the truth that gnaws at me every day. Not a single day passes without me questioning, was it really the medical treatment that cured me? Or was it that moment of despair when I said out loud that I accepted Miguel's friendship? Gabriel went back to normal after my recovery. He stopped mentioning Miguel. He grew up, made real friends, became a happy and healthy child. Sometimes I look at him and almost manage to convince myself that it was all just a difficult phase, stress, imagination. Almost. Because in the quietest hours of the night, when I wake up with the sensation of being watched, I know I'm not alone. I feel a familiar, patient presence, waiting, as if someone is collecting a debt I haven't finished paying yet. And the question that haunts me isn't whether Miguel existed or not. The question is, what exactly did I promise in that moment of despair? And when will he come to collect? And that's how my story ends. Or at least that's how it stands today. I know many of you must be wondering if all of this really happened, if Miguel was real or just a manifestation of the stress and fear of a desperate mother facing a terminal illness. Honestly, I wish I had that answer. What I can say is that I'm alive. My son is well, and every day I wake up not knowing if I owe that to medicine or to something much darker. But what about you? What would you do in my place? In a moment of total despair, with your child crying, begging you not to die, how far would you go to protect those you love? Is there a line you wouldn't cross? Or do we all, deep down, know that there are things for which we'd be willing to pay any price? If this story made you question your own certainties, if it made you look at the shadows in your rooms with a little more attention, leave a comment telling us what you think. Do you believe I made a pact? Or was it all just a coincidence? And if you've been through something similar, something that made you question the limits between the real and the impossible, tell us in the comments. Sometimes, sharing these experiences can be the only way not to go crazy with them.
If you like this story, don't forget to leave a like. It helps me a lot to keep bringing these tales to you. And subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the next stories I have to tell, because believe me, I have many others. Until next time, and remember, pay attention to the imaginary friends of the children around you. Sometimes they might not be so imaginary after all. Good night, and beware of what whispers in the dark.